Greetings, family. This is your brother Sundiata. I'm going to read two selections from this book entitled Important Utterances of His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I, Jah Rastafari, Volume 1. Okay, two short selections that I'm going to read briefly and go into a little bit of detail about each one. All right, now there's another book on the market that has been for a number of years. I once owned it, but I no longer have possession of it. You know how it is when you lend people your stuff. But it is called The Selected Speeches of His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I. The book is about yay thick, and it goes into detail of almost every speech that he had ever given as he held certain important posts in government before he became emperor, as well as when he was pronounced emperor and given the title Haile Selassie I. Okay, so the first selection is entitled Change Nature's Law. Listen carefully. The developments have followed one another pell-mell at an ever-increasing pace, for change is the law of nature and the law of life. The physical have been impressive, but even more impressive and equally, if not more important, have been the changes wrought in the mentality and psychology of the Ethiopian people. The physical phase of Ethiopia shall continue to change in the years ahead. Ethiopia's cities and towns shall continue to grow. Agriculture shall be modernized. Communications shall weld the nation ever closer. So too shall the future witness the introduction of ever more drastic and revolutionary changes in the mental attitudes and outlook of the people. New questions shall be posed to our ancient, traditional, and customary habits of thoughts. Long-held conception and beliefs shall come under ever closer critical scrutiny and examination. Our response to these challenges will decide the future. What is the emperor saying? The physical, yes, you'll always see structures being erected, infrastructure being facilitated and implemented, and we tend to be very, very impressed with what goes on with physical things that we can see. But the true test of a man, and which will be, the thing about an individual, a man or a woman's longevity, and what you see in the actions of a person, is the paradigm shift and the change in their mentality and in their psychology, how they now think about certain things. So here the emperor is describing how the people's mind states have shifted and changed over the years to bring about the type of new development, new modernization, and change that the country was seeking during this time. The emergence of Ethiopia from her centuries of self-imposed and self-enforced isolation was itself a sharp break with the concept that physical separation was essential to the nation's precious independence. Only isolation, it was believed, could guarantee security from the repeated invasion mounted against Ethiopia by those who would despoil her land and rob her people. The nation's solitude had thus to be jealously preserved and maintained. In order to get your shit in order, you have to sometimes isolate yourself. And this is what was foretold of in certain biblical scripture. I don't know them right offhand in terms of the actual chapter and verse, but you think about the Hebrews, all right, and of course Ethiopia, being a Christian nation, had one time before they converted to Christianity, was a Hebrew nation, okay, and following that Hebraic law, they knew the importance, because of what was in that scripture, of isolating themselves from the rest of the world. This was forced upon them by themselves. This was a self-imposed isolation, and because of that isolation, they kept outside influence from coming in and having a negative impact on their lives, on their country. So this concept is important, because we're inundated with media, with television and iPads and iPhones and video games and all of these things that our children see, and adults that we get and we receive it. We're continually being programmed by these physical things, by the visual that we get on a daily basis. So one of the ways that we can take these words and apply them to our own lives, isolate yourself, or as much as you possibly can, from certain things to protect and preserve your purity, to protect and preserve your integrity and your character. And this is why, sometimes when people are going through life and they end up going through all of these hills and valleys, and they get to a point where they're just sick and tired of it, and they withdraw themselves from the bullshit. I mean, it's that, even as far as someone saying, you know what, I'm gonna take a Facebook fast. I'm gonna fast from Facebook. As trivial as that is, because you're coming right back, you're leaving some garbage and you're coming right back to it, however long your fast is. But the concept and the idea is right in their thinking. Isolate yourself. Remove yourself from that which will be detrimental to you. And then once you've mastered yourself, and see, that's what the Buddhist monks do when they go off to monastery, or other types of sages and people of high spiritual caliber. They have certain periods of times in their lives where they go on sabbatical, and they completely remove themselves from the ways of the world so that they can focus on themselves. And this is what Ethiopia did as a nation, as a country. So how, we have to be able to take this type of lesson. If they could do it as a nation, then we should very well be able to do it as individuals, as neighborhoods, as, with cliques of people that you click up with based on common interests, based on, nationality and identity and ethnic background. You should be able to come to a consensus to remove yourselves from the activity of the ways of the world in order to preserve that which is important, so that it can be maintained and passed down to the next generation. Very, very important. Today, how far we have come. Each year, Ethiopia plays host to increasing thousands of foreign visitors who travel to our land to view the richness of our culture, the beauty of our countryside, the charm of our people, and their way of life. No longer uncertain of our ability to protect our vital interests. No longer questioning whether our strength is indeed sufficient to protect us against the exploiter. Ethiopia today welcomes all who seek entry at her frontiers, and we see the technology and expertise which others can bring to our development. So very important. You know who you are now. Ethiopia knew what they were to become. They had now discovered themselves, and they were comfortable enough to now allow other people, foreigners, to come in and conduct business with them, engage in commerce, engage in, whatever activity that people want to come in, other nations want to come in, tourists want to come in. They were secure in themselves. So bring that to the self. Bring that to the people that you click up with. Are you solid enough to where nobody can penetrate your crew and penetrate your clique? Are you solid enough to where the people within your clique and within your crew don't sabotage what you have going on? Are you solid enough to be able to protect and preserve that which you have built or are in the process of building? You have to become sure of yourself and solid enough and strong enough to know that whatever comes at you or at your group or at your nation will not be strong enough to compromise your ability to function, because that's what it's all about, being able to function. If you cannot function, then you can't be productive and you can't do anything for anybody. So very, very important to maintain that isolationist type of mentality and that knowledge of self. Being sure of who you are, being sure of your talents and your abilities so that nobody can come and knock you off of your square. Key.